Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Smarter Campus podcast, where we are changing education one conversation at a time. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Sarah Gibson. Sarah leads as the director of School of Communication and the Center of Digital Media Ethics, blending creativity with a deep passion for ethical storytelling in the age of AI. Her innovative work has inspired countless of students around the world. I don't know if you see her weekly reflections, but if you don't, you should go check them out because they're amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Sarah. If you could just kind of give everyone a little more introduction to yourself, then we can get into it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love technology and I love how it intersects with humanity. And that is just a part of my life. That's how my mother was. That's how I grew up around coding and around new technology and music and Mac computers and everything and how it integrates into your life. It was something that she was passionate about. And so I guess I'm second generation in that.
Well, that's amazing. I'm so excited to have you here. So, Sarah, as you kind of mentioned, you're a bit of an early adopter in technology. If how did you stumble upon what is now generative AI?
I was actually in a meeting for our liberal arts core. We were redoing that here at Lipscomb, and a professor said, "Have you seen this Chat GTP thing?" And I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And so he showed it to me, and he was very frightened by it, and I actually was kind of intrigued by it. And that just started the entire journey and the entire conversation. And when I look back on it, it's amazing how short of a time that has been because it has transformed my life in incredible ways and really kind of fueled my passion and helped me find the direction that I want to continue down in the next several years.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. So the one thing that we kind of have seen in higher education, right, is that adoption's been difficult.
Yes.
So the one thing you're really pushing for is to kind of get that within your institution. Like, what is something that you lead with when you're telling other educators about how they
The,
should adopt this?
yeah, and it's the same, the conversation's the same with students and
Yeah,
faculty, I would say.
yeah,
The first question I always say is, what are your feelings around AI? And it's
yeah,
a lot of, I'm fearful and it's going to take my job. And I always tell them, you're not going to hurt my feelings. You know, I'm passionate about AI, but just tell me and be honest. And my comment back to them is, that's fantastic, which takes them back first. And they
yeah,
want to know why I think that's fantastic. I said, that means you're thinking critically. And if you're thinking critically about how to integrate it, that's exactly where I want you. And now that you're thinking critically about how to integrate it, let me show you what it actually does. Because what I'm finding is a lot of them don't really understand what it can do
yeah,
and how it can impact your life. So this week, with a group of students who are very apprehensive, I started off with solving a problem for them. And the problem was they don't have a lot of money. They want to eat. They don't have time to go and make lunches, right? So let's have AI make us a meal plan at under $35 and give us all the ingredients. And that immediately sparked their curiosity. So it's going from fear to curiosity. That's the hardest challenge. So for students, seeing how it can impact and solve a problem for them is foundational. For faculty, you have to start with the academic integrity issue. So if I start with the fear of my students are going to use it to cheat, and now I have to be this officer that goes around and polices everything, and you have to flip that, and that's harder that's like a more tough conversation to have. But once you have that conversation and get them to understand that students have cheated all their lives, they will continue to cheat. But if I flip the conversation, it's just the way it is, right? The
yeah.
people
No,
who
it's
want to
true.
cheat are going to cheat. So if I flip the conversation and instead of saying, I'm going to try to catch you cheating, which creates a negative environment in the classroom among the student and among the faculty member. And it's hard to facilitate learning when you have a negative relationship.
Yeah,
So let's flip it to, let me show you why it is important not to cheat, and let
yeah,
me show you the value, which also means they need to be very honest with themselves. And that's the hardest thing for faculty. How can I be honest with myself that what I've been doing in the classroom may not be the most efficient, regardless of AI? And then
Yeah.
AI can help me be efficient and help me create this learning environment where students, I invite them into the learning process and we become collaborators. And if they can see that and get that, and the moment they get it, there's some sadness and grief
Yeah.
and involved in that. And so I talk to them about the stages of grief and like you're going to feel some grief for education. But let's move past that and let's look at how AI can actually solve those problems that we already knew existed, but maybe we didn't want to fully admit at this point.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. Where have you found a lot of success with like educating faculty on this?
The turning point at Lipscomb University was our full faculty meeting. Because
Okay.
if you're going to be honest about how to do this, the people who want to have the conversation and are open to having the conversation will come to sessions that you put on. But it's the people who don't want to have the conversation who won't be attending those. So if you can get in front of a full faculty meeting and really talk about this and not just mention it, but we actually had Jose Bowen come in and speak for an hour, and we gave every faculty member a copy of the Teaching for AI book. And that was the pivotal change because not only were they hearing someone in the field be very honest and say, look, it's not a cheating issue. And you don't really understand what it can do. And if you haven't spent time with it, you need to spend time with it to
Yeah.
understand. And then give them the book that they can walk away with that has all the research, because faculty want that research and they want
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
example. So once that happened, all of a sudden, people who I thought would be the hardest to adopt started saying, hey, I read the book and they've got it all marked up, right? Which
Yeah.
is super exciting. And I'm integrating some things in my classroom. And I was just taken aback. And then you follow up with it immediately with a session on academic integrity and
Yep.
AI. Because that's where you start. And we were going to do a semester long badge series on that, where we give them a badge at the end for coming to everyone. It was really the first and second session where it that was no longer the conversation. And so then they wanted to know how to prompt. And so we had to shift into that
Yeah.
prompting. And people who didn't come to that session, we're going to start offering it online now so that they can repeat that.
Yeah.
But it really is like one step at a time, right? And this little roadmap is emerging of how you get to that adoption stage.
That's incredible. I mean, from all of the conversations I've been having, I mean, it really seems like Lipscomb is kind of like leading the charge right now, which is super cool. So like, how would you say that you get faculty? I mean, you kind of explained it already, so I guess I'm gonna ask a different question. Like, what do you think switches in their brain that those like not the people that hated it now are the biggest advocates for it?
I think it's slightly different for each person.
Okay.
So for some, it is that they start using it in their own lives. I had one faculty member who said that he always did this game with his daughter for her birthday, um, uh, it, like a scavenger hunt, right? And
Yeah,
he
yeah.
just was too tired to do it this year. And but it's a tradition. So like as a parent, you've got to do it. So they got onto AI and gave it things about her and where they wanted her to go in the house, and it wrote the scavenger hunt for him. And then for him, it was I can see how I can use it in my own life. For others, it's just attaching it to previous things. So I had one faculty member who said, it just occurred to me this is like the adoption of computers on campus. And I was the first faculty member to get a computer. And this is the same thing. And so it's attaching it to previous experiences. So it's slightly different. And there's no model for what that looks like, but also it's not generational.
Yeah.
So it's really finding the thing that resonates with that person. And for some, it's just seeing how people are using it in the classroom. I have one faculty member who was hearing my students talk about how impactful it has been for them. And all of a sudden they were like, well, I want my students to talk like me about talk about my class to others the same way they
Yeah.
talk about yours. And so then they wanted help all of a sudden to build something. So it's one piece at a time. It's almost like a one-on-one that you have to do. But once you get that ball rolling, that's the key, then it will start to build pretty quickly.
I mean, that's incredible. So like the next question I have is now that you've got all faculty kind of on board, how do you keep them up to date with the wild, wild west of what's going on right now?
That is the biggest question, right? And I was meeting with the College of Health Sciences the other day, and that's what they were asking me. Um, you have to think about just-in-time information. Faculty are overloaded. They're too busy. So what do they need and when do they need it? Or how can I create a resource so they can get it when they need it? You can't give them too much. It's got to be just right. And that I don't know that there's a good answer for that yet, except we found that keeping little videos under 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I had someone who was wanting to use Research Rabbit, and they were very confused. And I said, well, we've got a 5 minute video on that. Like, I'll send it to you. And just in time information, right when they need it at certain times in the semester is key. But I'm a big advocate. We have not done this. I think this is the next step. I'm
Yeah.
a big advocate that you're going to need one person. There has to be one person on campus who's not the czar, doesn't make all the decisions, but
Yeah.
actually pulls people, the right stakeholders together and says, okay, College of Education, here are two things you need to know about AI, and then allows faculty and deans to trust that person so much that they don't have to pay attention to the day to day. And if they
Yeah.
do come across something that they're confused, that person can come in and step in and say, okay, here's where we are. And I think that's the next step. We're forming a academic standing group who will
Yeah.
think about issues, but I still think you need one person to own it. And there are other schools that have moved in that direction, and that person can't be in the Center for Teaching and Learning. They probably need to be in the provost office, potentially the
Yeah.
president's office, because AI is bigger than the classroom. It affects everything and it will affect everything. And so there needs to be someone who's paying attention and kind
Okay.
of alerting all the stakeholders.
Okay, so I love what you said. AI is bigger than the classroom, right?
It is.
So how do you like how are you guys using AI to kind of better prepare your students for what is outside of the classroom?
Right now, everything is in the classroom, and faculty are thinking about how to prepare them within their industry. So, like,
Yeah.
what is my
Okay.
industry demand?
Yep.
And then I'm going to try to react to that. But we're having conversations about how it can help in the registrar's office and how career services can use it and
Yeah.
how it can prepare students for interviews and internships. So, those conversations are starting to happen around campus, and we'll probably start moving on them pretty quickly. But that's the next level of integration. It's just understanding that it can help with your business processes at the university, but it also can help give information to the students in exciting ways. I mean, we were just talking about, you don't even know this. I mean, talk to you about this. My chief information officer was saying, I was asking if we could do something, and he said, well, Boodlebox, if we had that API, we could do that and we could build that out and it could use that information and then it could automate some of the things that we spend a lot of time doing so that we can, and this is what I love about AI. I use AI because it makes me more human. Which is really weird, but I use
Yeah. Yeah.
AI because it allows me to focus on being on my humanity and connections with other humans. So if
Yeah.
we can lift some of the things that instructors have to do on a daily basis or the administration has to do on a daily basis, it frees up time to really build relationships in meaningful ways with students, which becomes impactful across the entire board.
That's incredible. I mean, it's just super cool to see what you're doing. So, next question, big question. If you could snap your fingers and change one thing about education, what would change after you snapped your fingers?
That is a great question. I think I would make learning more personalized
Yeah.
immediately
Yeah.
and more process oriented. The creativity and the critical thinking is going to be foundational. And I think there was an article in the Chronicle for Higher Ed that I've been using that has really resonated a lot. And the point of that article was that we have to be honest that we weren't put here to teach students how to write essays or take
Yeah.
exams.
Yeah.
And that form of assessment is not the best, but students will have to write reports. And so the process of writing a paper is the same process in writing a report. And so, can I assess the process and signal to the student that the process is more important than the product? The essay is less important than the critical thinking, than the steps at which I took to get there.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the foundational shift that faculty are going to have to make, where I'm not the sage on the stage giving information because students have access to that information, but I'm actually in a relationship mentoring them in how to think and how to approach problems.
That's awesome. I mean, so next, Sarah, I mean, I know you're kind of a leader in the space. I mean, I'm listening and I'm learning something every day from what you're doing. So the next thing is there's a lot of people like yourself that don't quite have the muster like ability yet to kind of go out and make change within their university. So like if you had one piece of advice for a teacher that feels the same way that you do, how would you say that they could go make a change within their like local environment?
One step at a time. Don't try to do everything.
Okay.
Um, Go to the stakeholders and say, I want to have a conversation. Go to your IT department and say, I want to better understand your security concerns. Everyone has something that they are concerned about. Legal has something that they're concerned about. And the more you can understand what they are hesitant about, the easier it is to find a resolution that will allow you to innovate. And so bringing those stakeholders along and helping them understand that they can't stifle the creativity, that we can integrate it responsibly is a huge thing. Also, just signal that you want to be a part of the conversation.
Okay.
So I found a lot of administrators feel pressure to have these conversations, but they don't have time to have them. And so being a little nosy and building a relationship with your provost office, and then respectfully saying, hey, I came across this great thing and I think you might be interested in it. That's what has worked the most is I have inserted myself into the conversation, not harshly, but very calmly and easily kind of worked my way to the table and have given them information that they weren't aware of that solved a problem that they didn't have time to solve. So
Yeah.
I have a problem in the fact that faculty need to be trained on AI. I don't have time to solve that problem. And so I just kind of raised my hand and I said, I would like to train faculty. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
Well, they just kind of gave me space. And so I've
Yeah.
gotten to a point where, yeah, it was just fantastic. I've gotten to a point where now I'm being invited to those meetings, anything dealing with AI. And it's because I signaled that I'm interested in that and that I'm solution oriented and I'm not here to like raise my hand and say, here are all the problems with AI, but here's the ways in which I think that we can solve them, keeping in mind budget and other concerns. So, yeah.
I think what you just said is the most pertinent thing that everyone in the world should hear. It's like don't talk about it, do it. Right?
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
fact that like, hey, we all know it's bad and we are all going to sit here and echo chamber each other about what we're talking about. But what Sarah Gibson just said, do it. Go make change. Say, I can be the one that does this. But last question, Sarah, we're coming up on our time. Try to keep these things pretty short. Is I love to ask people, what's your favorite AI use case outside of school? I know you have a ton of them, so I'm really excited for this answer. Mine is
So
cooking. I want to
the
hear
I could go on all day, but the most exciting one is the one I discovered this week, and I don't know why I didn't think about it before. I am now talking to AI on my commute home and talking through all my problems and reports that I need to write and having it write a to-do list. And I would ask it questions like, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm having trouble determining what the right word is. Can you give me some ideas? I don't really like that. I like this as if I was talking to an assistant on the phone the entire drive home, and then telling it, oh, can you put that on the to-do list? Can you go ahead and add that to that list that we're creating? And then when I get home, I can copy and paste it and use it. And I've done 30 minutes of work as I'm driving home,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. Yeah.
That is amazing. Well, everyone listening, I will leave all of Sarah's information in the YouTube link. Hopefully, we might have a podcast account somewhere and I could leave her information there as well. But I think anyone who's interested in this stuff, Sarah is a lighthouse that can probably be used to help you get through this very tough time at a university. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you for having me.